Hi everybody, it's Tim with Engadget, and this is the long-awaited Verizon flavor of the Google Galaxy Nexus from Samsung. This adds LTE 4G to the picture, and thus making this superphone complete in my eye as a very, very high-end device, not only in terms of specs and performance, but also in terms of bandwidth performance as well. This device now with LTE, we've seen download speeds upwards of 15, 16, 17, 18 megabits per second, and upload speeds that are every bit as quick, making this quite a device both in terms of sheer processing power and sheer downloading power. But that does come at a price, most notable being the extra bit of chunk that you can see this phone has developed. I'm going to go ahead and grab the HSPA Plus version of the phone, which is here. And while it's not immediately apparent, I mean, we're not talking a massive difference between these two, there is definitely a difference, and you can absolutely feel it in your hand when you pick one up, especially if you have the option to hold the two at the same time. The LTE version is just a little bit thicker, it's just a little bit heftier, and most problematically, most of that heft seems to lie up here in the top of the device, meaning it's not quite as well balanced in your hand as the HSPA Plus version is. But it's still a very slender phone, it's still a very comfortable phone to hold, and still, it must be said, a very nice phone indeed. Yeah, let's do a quick tour around the device. Up front we have the beautiful 720p Super AMOLED display. Now this is a pen-tile display, so the color reproduction is not quite as good as on some of Samsung's Plus displays, but it is still very good, and you'd be hard-pressed to really find a complaint with this display. It's beautiful, it's bright, the resolution is quite good, and it is perhaps the best display on a smartphone at the moment. On the right side here we have a power toggle button. Up top there's really not much going on at all. On the left side we have a volume rocker. On the bottom, micro USB and a headphone jack. On the back we have a 5 megapixel webcam with an LED flash. The camera performance is unfortunately simply average. It doesn't come anywhere near the performance of, say, the Galaxy S2 or other higher end camera phones at the market. At the moment, this is one of the more disappointing aspects of this phone. Let's go ahead and pry the back off here. It does have one of these flimsy plastic backs that Samsung has been putting on many of its devices lately. Here we have a battery and a SIM card underneath the plastic cover here. NFC is also built into the device, but it's worth pointing out that Verizon has sadly opted to disable Google Wallet, which is, I think it's safe to say, the most important NFC app on Android at the moment. So that you cannot use Google Wallet is definitely a disappointment for me, and it makes one wonder whether this should be called a Nexus phone at all, because realistically Nexus phones are supposed to be completely unadulterated, and this one certainly has been, at least to some small degree. Let's go ahead and turn on the device and take a step into Ice Cream Sandwich, which is of course the brand new and beautiful operating system from Google, which is debuting on the Galaxy Nexus. Now, we've already done a very extensive walkthrough of Ice Cream Sandwich, so I won't do too much for you here, except to just give you a quick walkthrough of the operating system if you haven't seen it before, just to give you an idea. Effectively, we're looking at something that's pretty similar to Honeycomb. Now, rather than pressing the home button down to do task switching, you hit this button here. That gives you a view of the different applications that are open. Back button is here. If indeed you need to use a menu button to get to options, usually that will appear in the upper right in applications, or for compatibility applications, it will be down at the bottom as well. But again, we're not talking about a major change between this and Honeycomb, but it is certainly a much nicer operating system, both in terms of its visual presence and also in terms of its responsiveness and fluidity. However, I do think that it's a little bit less intuitive for users in a lot of ways. It's not really obvious when you pick up this device exactly how to use it, but once you figure it out, I think you're going to like it. So let's go ahead and jump into the browser here and do a quick browser test, give you a look at the stock keyboard here as I type in Engadget incorrectly. I'm still getting the mobile view, as you can see, that rendered very quickly. Now let's jump over to the desktop view. As you can see, that rendered very quickly indeed. Pinch to zooming is incredibly smooth. Very, very impressive. Let's look at this depressing RIM news here and see how quickly that loads up for us. Again, very quick, very smooth. We're seeing some adaptive rendering happening. It's pushing text to the left to try to make it fit on the screen, but ultimately it doesn't really need to, because we've got a full 720p's worth of pixels here to play with. So again, we're quite happy with the Verizon version of the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. It is unfortunately a big compromise, both in terms of its extra bulk and its reduced battery life, but ultimately that doesn't really put us off the prospect of having incredible bandwidth thanks to the LTE connection inside. We are also disappointed by the lack of Google Wallet on this device, and we are a little bit concerned about what that might mean down the road for updates. But we're hopeful that the hacking community will be very quick to fix that issue and get us some Google Wallet on there, because that's something that we really want to use with our NFC. So again, this is the LTE version of the Samsung Galaxy Nexus on Verizon, available now for $299, and we would say well worth the money.